One of the more common uses for Jira as an end user is going to be for its agile workflows. So in the next couple of videos, we'll be looking at using agile in Jira. Now there's two types of agile boards that you can have in Jira, either a Scrum board, which essentially means that you'll be having sprints, or a Kanban board, which does not use sprints. So there's no right or wrong as to which one your team is using. Usually that's a decision that your team, your company, your organization will make as to whether or not sprints will work best or a Kanban board with an ongoing development cycle will work best. And then once that decision is made, we'll kind of determine what type of board is set up for your team. So let's start by getting an overview of a Scrum board in this video. All right, so to access your boards, you're going to go up to the boards dropdown, and then you'll be able to see whatever boards you accessed recently in this dropdown, or if you don't see the board you want, go to View All Boards, and then you'll see a listing of all of the boards that you have access to. So right now you can see I have two boards set up. One is the Kanban board that we'll look at later, and then we have the Scrum board. So let's open that up. There's a couple things that'll happen. First, we'll be taken to the board, but then also Jira will know that you visited this board. So if it wasn't there already, it will show up in your recent boards in this dropdown. Makes it a little bit faster to get to. Now, something else I want to point out as a faster way to get to this, if you are using Jira primarily for Agile, then you can even get to this faster if you set up your Jira home. So if you set up this to go to boards rather than dashboard, as soon as you log in, you'll be sent to whatever the last Agile board was that you went to. So if this is your team board and you set up boards as the Jira home, as soon as you log in, you'll be sent to this, and it's just a much faster way of getting to the information that you need inside of Jira. It's really nice because it kind of eliminates some extra clicks. So if I set that to boards, and then that makes this link up here. If this is the Jira logo, your company logo, then when you click on that, it will go to the actual Agile board, as we can see here. All right, so let's take a look at this view and kind of get familiar with this. So right now we are on the active sprints view. So I do have a sprint going just so we can kind of see what this looks like. If you don't have a sprint going, it'll just tell you that there's no active sprints. So up here at the top, we have the name of the sprint. This is something that your team leader or manager will probably set up when they create the sprint. We have quick filters. So once again, these are filters that the team leader, manager, or Jira administrator can actually set up on your board. We have the time left in the sprint. So if you hover over this, you'll be able to see when the sprint started and then when it ends. So different teams will sprint for different durations. It's common to have 1 week or 2 week or maybe even a month sprint. And then this kind of gives you an idea of how much time is left in that sprint to get all of these things done that are on the board. You can see complete sprint is grayed out because I'm not the manager, I'm not the team leader for this, or I'm not the Jira administrator, so I can't actually complete this sprint. We'll look at this process as a team leader or manager later on in this course. And then we have our board options. So we can configure this board depending on what our settings are as far as our permissions will determine how much stuff we can actually do in here. We'll look at configuring and creating boards later on in this course. And then we have the ability to just kind of hide everything. So we can hide the header if we just want to minimize our view and really just focus on this particular sprint. It's kind of a day-to-day workflow. All right, so if you are working in this agile view, your day-to-day is probably going to really consist of moving these tickets from left to right. So in agile, the basic premise is you always want to move from left to right, and you want to move it as far to the right as you can before bringing out another ticket. So the idea is that you want to be able to, if you start working on the ability to upload attachments for, say, let's say we drag this to in progress. So we're starting to work on this. We want to get as far as we can to get this to completion, if possible, before starting to work on something else. Otherwise, we'll complete our sprint and we'll have a lot of things in progress, but nothing really to show for that sprint, no actually completed work. So the process for this is really just to click and drag, and it's left click and drag in order to move the issue between the different columns. Now, the actual columns you have set up, whether or not you're able to drag between different columns, all of that is configurable by the Jira administrator. So don't really expect it to look exactly like this. I've seen some agile boards that are very long. There's a lot of different steps in the process. Maybe you can take it from one and then automatically assign it to somebody else if it goes to another column, things like that. We'll look at a lot of those workflows when we're actually looking at this from a Jira administrative point of view. But as an end user, this is very, very simple. All we need to do is just click and drag. And if we do actually need to pull something back, we can do that. So you can see as soon as I pull this back, it's no longer crossed out, which means it's no longer completed. So I'm dragging it from done to do. Now, something to keep in mind here is this is all being tracked. So if we click on this, you can see the little detail view here. You can see all of this information as far as, what the status is, who the reporter is, a lot of the just quick information here. But if we click on the title of this ticket and then go back into the issue detail view, which we looked at in an earlier course, or earlier lesson rather, we look at the history on this, we'll be able to see that this was actually, this was done at one point, and then it was dragged back to in progress. So that's something to keep in mind is if you accidentally drag something over there, by all means, you can bring it back. But ideally, you don't want to complete something until it's actually done. And that's just something that you and your team will have to work on to make sure that things are actually done before dragging them over. All right, so that's a quick overview of this view here for active sprints. So let's move on to our next video where we'll take a look at the backlog view.